I used to believe that marriage was mostly about luck. Some couples smiled in photos, celebrated anniversaries, and posted beautiful memories online, while others quietly drifted apart. Watching so many relationships fail made me believe that love simply faded with time. I promised myself that I would never expect too much from marriage, because disappointment always seemed to be waiting around the corner. Then, one ordinary afternoon, everything I believed began to change. I met a woman named Emma during a community volunteer event. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She wasn't loud, flashy, or seeking attention. She simply moved through every conversation with kindness, patience, and a calm confidence that made people feel comfortable. I noticed how she listened more than she spoke, and how every person she met walked away smiling. At first, I thought she was simply being polite, but as the day continued, I realized her kindness was completely genuine. That single day planted a question in my mind. What if I had misunderstood what real love actually looked like? We started talking after the event and discovered that we enjoyed many of the same simple things. We both loved quiet mornings, long walks, homemade coffee, and conversations that lasted for hours. There was no pressure to pretend or impress each other. Every conversation felt easy, almost as if we had known each other for years. As weeks turned into months, our friendship naturally grew into something much deeper. I kept waiting for the excitement to disappear or for reality to expose hidden problems. But something unexpected happened. Instead, the more I learned about Emma, the more I admired her. She wasn't perfect, and neither was I, but she never tried to hide her flaws. She believed honesty created trust, and trust created peace. That idea stayed with me because I had always believed relationships survived through passion alone. Emma quietly showed me that respect mattered even more. One evening, we sat on a park bench watching children play while the sun slowly disappeared behind the trees. I asked her what she thought made a marriage successful. She smiled for a moment before answering. She said that marriage wasn't about finding someone who made every day exciting. It was about finding someone who made ordinary days feel safe. Those words stayed with me long after we went home. Safe. I had never connected that word with love before. I always imagined romance as dramatic surprises, expensive gifts, and unforgettable adventures. Emma believed the greatest gift two people could give each other was emotional safety. She explained that when people stopped fearing judgment, criticism, or rejection, they finally became free to love completely. As our relationship continued, I started noticing small habits that reflected her beliefs. Whenever I made mistakes, she didn't embarrass me. Instead, she encouraged me to learn from them. When I felt overwhelmed by work, she never complained about the hours I spent away. She simply reminded me to take care of myself. When I doubted my abilities, she believed in me before I could believe in myself. Little by little, my fear of marriage began disappearing. I realized I had spent years expecting someone to complete me. But Emma wasn't trying to complete me. She wanted us to grow together while remaining individuals with our own dreams. That difference completely changed my understanding of commitment. One rainy weekend, we decided to organize old family photographs. As we looked through albums, Emma pointed at a picture of her grandparents laughing together in a tiny kitchen. They weren't wearing expensive clothes or standing inside a luxurious home. They looked genuinely happy. Emma explained that her grandparents never measured success by money. They measured it by peace. Even after 50 years together, they still thanked each other for ordinary things like making tea or folding laundry. I found that amazing, because appreciation often disappears after familiarity grows. Emma believed gratitude should increase over time, instead of fading away. Inspired by that conversation, I began thanking people more often, not only Emma but also my family, friends, and coworkers. To my surprise, everything around me slowly changed. Relationships became warmer, conversations became kinder, and even stressful situations felt easier to handle. One evening, I admitted something that had embarrassed me for years. I told Emma I had always been afraid that marriage eventually trapped people, making them lose their identity. She listened carefully without interrupting. When I finished speaking, she smiled gently and said something I will never forget. She told me that healthy marriage doesn't shrink two lives into one. Instead, it gives both people the confidence to become the best versions of themselves. That sentence completely challenged everything I had believed. I realized I had been looking at marriage through stories filled with conflict, disappointment, and broken promises. Emma viewed marriage through partnership, encouragement, forgiveness, and shared growth. The difference wasn't just in perspective, it changed how every decision was made. We started imagining what our future could look like. Instead of dreaming about giant houses or luxury vacations, we talked about simple dinners together, reading books on rainy evenings, helping neighbors, raising children with kindness, and growing old, while still finding reasons to laugh every single day. For the first time in my life, marriage didn't feel like a risk. It felt like a journey built one ordinary moment at a time. I didn't realize it then, but Emma had already started changing everything I believed about love, commitment, and the meaning of forever. As our relationship grew stronger, I paid closer attention to the small choices Emma made every day. She believed that relationships were built through consistent actions rather than dramatic promises. She remembered birthdays without reminders, checked on friends who were struggling, and always found time to call her parents. Watching her taught me that love wasn't measured by how loudly someone expressed it, but by how faithfully they lived it. One morning we visited a small cafe before work. An elderly couple sat near the window, quietly sharing breakfast. They barely spoke because they didn't need to. Every few minutes one would smile at the other, or refill the other's coffee cup, without being asked. Emma noticed them too. She whispered that this was her favorite kind of love, peaceful, comfortable, and deeply connected. I watched them for several minutes, and realized they looked happier than many newly married couples I had seen. That moment became another lesson. I never expected. Love wasn't always exciting, but it could become beautifully dependable. As the months passed, we faced our first serious disagreement. I worried that this would reveal whether our relationship was truly different. Instead of raising her voice, Emma asked if we could understand each other's feelings before trying to solve the problem. That completely surprised me, because I had always believed arguments were about winning. She believed disagreements were opportunities to understand each other better. We spent hours talking honestly until both of us felt heard. By the end of the evening, the disagreement had disappeared, but our trust had become even stronger. That experience changed my understanding of conflict forever. Problems didn't have to divide two people if both chose respect over pride. Eventually I asked Emma if she would marry me. I didn't plan an expensive proposal or choose a famous location. We stood beneath a quiet tree in the same park where we had first talked about what made marriage successful. I told her that she had changed the way I looked at love, family, and my future. Before I could finish speaking, tears filled her eyes. She smiled, said yes, and hugged me so tightly that every fear I had carried for years seemed to disappear. Friends and family celebrated with us, but what mattered most wasn't the wedding itself. It was everything we had built before that day. When our wedding finally arrived, nothing went exactly as planned. Rain forced the ceremony indoors, decorations arrived late, and the photographer missed several important moments. Surprisingly, none of it mattered. We laughed through every unexpected problem because we understood something that many people forget. A perfect marriage never begins with a perfect wedding. It begins with two imperfect people choosing each other every single day. After marriage, life became busy. Careers demanded more time, responsibilities increased, and unexpected challenges appeared. There were moments when we felt tired, frustrated, or uncertain about the future. Yet every difficult season reminded us of the promises we had quietly practiced long before exchanging rings. We listened before reacting. We apologized without keeping score. We celebrated small victories together and supported each other during disappointments. Those habits became stronger than any challenge we faced. Years later, people often asked us what our secret was. They expected us to mention communication techniques, financial planning, or relationship advice from experts. Instead, Emma usually smiled and answered with one simple sentence. She said that every healthy marriage begins with two people deciding that kindness will always be more important than being right. I noticed that people often paused after hearing those words because they sounded almost too simple. Yet simple truths are often the most powerful. Looking back now, I can hardly recognize the person I used to be. I once believed marriage slowly stole happiness. Now I understand that the right partnership multiplies it. I once believed commitment removed freedom. Now I know genuine commitment creates security, allowing both people to dream bigger without fear. I once believed love naturally disappeared over time. Emma showed me that love doesn't disappear when people continue choosing patience, gratitude, forgiveness, and respect every single day. We still enjoy ordinary mornings with homemade coffee. We still walk through parks discussing dreams that continue growing with us. Sometimes we laugh about how differently I used to think about marriage. Emma jokingly reminds me that she didn't change my mind with speeches or arguments. She simply lived the kind of life she believed in. And eventually, I saw the difference for myself. That may be the greatest lesson of all. Real love rarely changes people through dramatic moments. It changes them quietly through thousands of ordinary days, filled with trust, consistency, compassion, and hope. If someone had asked me years ago whether one person could completely transform everything I believed about marriage, I would have laughed and said no. Today my answer is very different. One genuine heart, one honest relationship, and one person willing to love with patience completely rewrote my understanding of commitment. Emma didn't just become my wife. She became living proof that marriage isn't the end of freedom, excitement, or personal growth. It is the beginning of building a life where two imperfect people help each other become stronger, wiser, kinder, and happier than they could have ever become alone. That is why, whenever someone tells me they have stopped believing in marriage, I don't argue with them. I simply smile, because I remember who I used to be. Then I quietly share my story, hoping they might discover what I discovered. Sometimes all it takes is meeting one extraordinary person to completely change everything you believed about love.